over here.
Good morning, Bruchim Habayim, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. And I see we still have people coming in, but we will begin this program. We're delighted to see all of you. What a turnout for Sunday morning. My name is Adam Moscow. I'm the president of the Tamir Board, Tamir Foundation of Ottawa. And welcome to this Tamir Recognition Program on Zoom for a long-term gift from the Philip Lewis Charitable Foundation. We just remind everyone to stay on mute. And hi there. Tamir is an Ottawa-based Jewish organization that provides quality of life in a caring and compassionate Jewish environment for individuals with developmental disabilities and their families. In a few moments, our executive director, Risa Klodnik, will outline more about our mission and how we have responded to the COVID pandemic to provide new and much needed support to families and individuals. And a lot of that is fueled thanks to this wonderful new gift from the foundation. So right now, to begin our program, I am delighted to introduce Rabbi Moshe Walter, who is the rabbi of the Woodside Ahavas Torah Synagogue, located in beautiful Silver Spring, Maryland, near Washington, D.C. The Lewis family have been members and supporters of this shul for many years. Friends, please join me in extending a warm welcome to Rabbi Moshe Walter.
I hear you clapping all over the world. Thank you so much. Thank you, Adam, for your very kind introduction. It is really an honor and privilege for me to be able to share some words of recognition, thanks, commemoration to BESSIE and Philip Lewis in honor of this wonderful long-term gift that they will be giving to Tamir. I'd like to certainly begin by sharing my thanks to Marshall, to Bruce, and to Zev for inviting me to share words of Torah and words of introduction. And certainly our relationship, my relationship with Bruce and with Zev and with Marshall is certainly unique, and it is very meaningful to me to be able to address the three of you, to the broader Lewis family, and to the Tamir family who is on. In considering my remarks this morning, I was reminded of a story that I'd like to share that I think really speaks to BESSIE and to Philip. There was a very, very wealthy philanthropist in the early 1900s who was bombarded with an enormous amount of requests for charity. He was an individual who people came from all over the country, the world, from an individual who was very successful in business and thus was a considerable philanthropist and somebody who was very happy to give donations to considerable causes. It just so happened that over the course of the weeks and the days and the months, the requests continued to come in at an almost unanswerable rate. And at one point, he said he was so overwhelmed that he traveled to visit the Chafetz Chaim, the great sage of Israel, the Gadol Hador, Rabbi Yisrael Meir HaKohen Kagan of Radin. The Chafetz Chaim died in the year 1933. This story took place in the 1915, 1916 range. I'm familiar with the story from the grandson of the philanthropist who recounted the story. He says that this individual traveled from the big city, I believe it was Warsaw, to Radin, to meet with the Chafetz Chaim, to ask the Chafetz Chaim, how do I handle the amount of requests that I'm receiving? I can no longer begin to decide, to decipher, to determine who to give to, when to give to, how much. It's just so overwhelming. Their phone calls, their emails, their texts, their letters, they're just coming in from all over. I don't know how to respond. The individual traveled to Radin, and the great sage of Israel, Chafetz Chaim, at that point was an aged man. He was in his late years, and he was reciting Tehillim when the great magnate, the philanthropist, entered the room. And it just so happened that he was reading Tehillim chapter 23, Psalm 23, the last verse, verse number 6 in chapter of Tehillim 23 reads, Ach tov v'chesed yirdefuni kol yemei chayai, which translates, may only goodness and kindness pursue me all the days of my life. And the Chafetz Chaim explained without the philanthropist even asking him the question, and I'll share with you the way I heard it from the grandson, and I'll translate. The Chafetz Chaim understood this verse to mean that no man can expect to live out all the days of his life in perfect tranquility. Everyone, every single person is destined to be harassed by some sort of worrisome bother that will disturb his equanimity. Such is life. Often the worries are serious, such as when one is pursued by debilitating disease, or by bitter enemies, or by the police, by bill collectors. Everybody is pursued by somebody, somehow, at some time, at some point. However, fortunate is the man who discharges his pursuit quota by suffering from those who pursue him for charity. Rejoice when the countless collectors hound you day and night, because you are sparing you from much, much worse. This, explained the Chafetz Chaim, was the meaning of the verse, only goodness and kindness shall pursue me all the days of my life. Ach, tov v'chesed yudefuni kol yemei chayai. The philanthropist who just so happened to enter the door when the Chafetz Chaim was explaining the meaning of that verse understood exactly what those words meant, understood that they were meant for him. He returned home reassured and intensified his charitable efforts and his charitable gifts. I knew BESSIE and Philip Lewis at the end of their life. I didn't know them in their younger years. I'm living now in Washington, D.C. for 10 years, but I got to know Bruce and I got to know Marshall and I got to know Zev, and certainly I got to know BESSIE and Philip at the end of their life. There are certain people who give charity, who give tzedakah because people ask them. There are certain people who give charity because they want their name on a window or on a door or on a very, very significant place. There are people who give tzedakah, there are people who give charity because they're asked to, and they respond. BESSIE and Philip Lewis were not like that. BESSIE and Philip Lewis gave charity not because they were asked, not because they wanted their name on a plaque, not because they were required, because ach tova chesed yudefuni kel yimei chayei, they loved to help people. They loved to share what they had with others. They loved to be able to give back, not only with the greater Washington community that I'm familiar with, but the Ottawa community, with Tamir, with countless people and organizations, both in this country and Canada and Israel. That's what they lived for, and that's what the Charitable Foundation does. That's what it did, and that's what it continues to do. So certainly the same way the Chafetz Chaim explained that individuals who look to give tzedakah are not just called ohev tzedakah, don't just love charity, but they're rodev tzedakah. They run after opportunities to give tzedakah. Philip and BESSIE didn't wait for somebody to ask. They looked how they can give before somebody asked. You know, there are often people who have to ask for charity. It's very uncomfortable. It's very hard. Somebody knocks on your door. You think it's easy? It's not so easy. It's very hard. Somebody sends an envelope. Somebody asks for a request. We often look begrudgingly at such a person, but it's very, very hard. I know so many people like that. It's so difficult. It's so challenged. The trick is for us to be able to respond before they ask. And that's what BESSIE and Philip did. And that's what they continue to do through their children, Marshall, Bruce, and Zev, continue the messages and the legacy of BESSIE and Philip with this organization, with their foundation, with this beautiful, beautiful gift to a beautiful organization that really speaks to the heart of who BESSIE and Philip were, caring for people, caring for every person, no matter the color, the race, the type, the stripe, wherever you are, whoever you may be. And it's an awesome, awesome gift. It's a beautiful gift. And certainly this gift is their ability to continue to give even after they are no longer. And this gift will be a gift that will last for years. Zev, Bruce, Marshall, you should be very proud of your decision, of your work, of the incredible organization that you're affiliated with, that you're connected with. You should continue to follow in your parents' legacy, to continue to be givers. God should continue to bless each of you, that what you are going to have to be struggle with, what you are going to have to be run after with is requests for charity. That should be your struggle. That should be your challenge. The rest of your lives, you should be pursued by people who are requesting of you. And you are people who won't wait for that request. You are people who run before the requests even come. Hashem should give you strength, should give you the energy, should give you joy, and should give you happiness to you, to your family, to the Lewis family. The Tamir organization, the Tamir group should continue to do all the wonderful work that you are doing, continue to uplift, to strengthen, to give life to the individuals who you help directly, to their families, to the broader community, and wishing everybody a wonderful week, a week of joy, a week of happiness as we approach the holiday of Shavuos 2 weeks from tonight, as we prepare for the acceptance of the Torah, a Torah which is full of chesed, a chesed of charity, of goodness, of kindness. And thank you again for the opportunity to share just a few words. I look forward to the rest of the event.
Thank you so much, Rabbi Walter. That was extremely thoughtful and insightful as we look forward to the rest of this program, and also, as you said, towards Shavuot. Now we are getting to an opportunity to meet Tamir. So let's begin with Lily Pensa, who many of you know, both from the Ottawa side and the Lewis side. She is the heartbeat of Tamir in many ways. She founded Tamir 36 years ago, along with help from many
Good morning,
friends.
family. And
and she's already with us. You can see it live, and she will share a video first. And we're looking forward to hearing the Kardash family story and the close connection between BESSIE and Philip and Tamir, going way back to our origins 36 years ago. Here we go.
good morning, family and friends. It is a pleasure and honor for me to give a brief history of the Kardash connection on the special occasion of the generous donation made through the MB Lewis Foundation in loving memory of my dear cousins, the late Bess Kardash Lewis and her husband, Philip Lewis. As a proud senior member of the Kardash family, it is interesting to recall the family roots, which go back to the Ukraine in the 1900s. After the devastating pogroms, my grandmother, Rivka Kardash and 7 of her 12 children fled to safety in America, 2 at a time, each helping the other in the immigration and adjustment to life in the new world. In 1930, using my grandmother's famous rye bread recipe, 2 brothers, David and Davy, established the Rito Bakery, always with the family participation over 4 generations, a true dynasty for over 90 years. So too, the growing Kardash Mishpacha continued to maintain a true family closeness in their everyday togetherness and generosity of spirit. My cousin, Bess, came to Canada as a young child, the eldest daughter of Littman Kardash, who was a master tailor and furrier, and his wife, Kayla. Other members of her family were her brother, Mo, sister, Lillian, and brother, Rabbi Dr. Yehuda Kardash. I remember her as being interested in the arts and theater. Her work career in Ottawa was at the Department of Foreign Affairs, which eventually led to a transfer to Washington, D.C., where she met her husband, Philip Lewis, who was a CPA. I fondly remember her as a very independent woman, a little ahead of her time. I was always amazed that after being a stay-at-home mother to her 3 sons, Marshall, Bruce, and Zev, she enrolled at university to study her passion of the Russian language. Despite the distance between Ottawa and Washington, Bess always maintained a strong connection with her family in Canada and visited often for family simchas and special occasions. She instilled these occasions and family bonds in her sons, who learned the importance of giving tzedakah at a very early age from their parents. The Lewis family generosity was always evident from the very beginning of Tamir, when our son Michael became one of the first 3 residents of Tamir more than 36 years ago. He lived there happily with his peers, enjoying quality of life in a safe Jewish environment. With Michael's having passed away just a year ago, this donation is even more meaningful as it honors his memory as well. When their Aunt Lillian Kardash, who was an artist, passed away several years ago, their generous donation in her memory was towards the establishment of an art room. Coming full circle to today's most generous donation, which will help Tamir for years to come. The Penso family would like to add their most sincere thanks to those of Tamir today. To my dear cousins, Marshall, Bruce, and Zev Lewis, I want to wish you well. Your beloved parents of blessed memory would be very proud of you.
Good morning, everyone. I'm so excited and pleased to be here to express my profound gratitude to the M.B. Lewis Charitable Foundation for its generous gift to Tamir. For those of you I have not yet had a chance to meet, I'm the new CEO of Tamir, having taken on the role last August, right in the middle of the pandemic. I could not have imagined how this year would unfold as when I began the new position. I moved to a new city and a new community. I also could not have envisioned that I would be standing here thanking the M.B. Lewis Foundation for helping to enrich the program and services offered at Tamir. Let me share some of Tamir's history so you can appreciate how we came to be and what we are about today. The Tamir Foundation was founded in 1985 by a mother wanting community-based residential living for her adult son with special needs. At the time, the Ottawa Jewish community had no agency that could support adults with developmental disabilities in a home-like setting that was aware and sensitive to their Jewish religious and cultural needs. With 3 adults needing support, Tamir was born. Since that time, Tamir has grown to support nearly 50 adults in various residential settings, and more than double that number participating through Tamir's day programs, respite programs, choir, art classes, and more. Tamir has truly been an innovator. It was the first Ottawa Jewish agency to pioneer inclusion by making sure that anyone, regardless of their abilities, can live a full life and can achieve their highest potential. It ensured that its participants have the opportunity to enjoy the same Jewish milestones and experiences that all Jewish youth and adults take for granted. Here are a few of examples of what Tamir has achieved. Tamir has brought a contingent of adults with developmental disabilities to Israel 3 times, the most recent trip being in 2018. During these trips, the participants tour and sightsee as well as meeting with counterparts in Israel for fellowship and friendship. These have been life-changing trips that have encouraged people to become more involved in the community back home, sparked a desire to learn Hebrew, and form bonds that will last forever. Tamir has made it possible for its participants to have a bar or bat mitzvah and has a wonderful group of talented individuals that can sing on key, the Tamir Neshama Choir, which has performed in Montreal, Florida, and many events in Ottawa. Tamir has offered a number of cultural experiences in collaboration with local theater performers. I must highlight the production of Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat, which was held in honor of the 25th anniversary of Tamir. This was an inclusive theatrical experience with amateur performers from Tamir and the broader community on stage together. It was truly a dream come true. And we must make special mention of the fashion shows held in 2017 and 19. Stepping Out in Style, an inclusive fashion show to sold-out crowds. Professional models and Tamir models alike wore haute couture from Canadian design houses. The designers made sure that every look fit the model's personality and was adapted to accommodate their personal mobility aids. There was no limits to what our models could do. In addition, some local children with disabilities and their parents joined us down the runway. It was truly a community event, an event that demonstrated the creativity and talent of all who were involved. This year, Tamir, along with everyone else in the community, has been living through challenges resulting from the COVID pandemic. I'm sure that you understand that the COVID pandemic has been particularly challenging for those with disabilities. We must applaud the efforts of our staff and volunteers who help us to adjust the way we offer programs in order to keep our participants active and engaged. Our goal of keeping our participants active, moving, and stimulating while never compromising their health and safety has been met throughout. It should be said, however, that COVID has been very difficult and especially challenging for families with a child with disabilities. Regular supports were halted overnight. Families felt abandoned and isolated as their connections to people, programs, and organizations were reduced and difficult to access. Notwithstanding the valiant efforts made by all, the impact was significant. I'm very proud to tell you that Tamir did not accept this reality and was determined to provide some help to families during these difficult times. Accordingly, it entered into a dialogue with local parent groups in order to solicit their input as what would be useful in mitigating the increased stress that they were experiencing. They identified the most important need was to support the emotional health of parents of children with challenges. The longer the pandemic lifestyle continues, the more the need grows. Risk of fatigue and burnout grow as the weeks turn into months and the vaccine distribution is delayed. As the pandemic continues, parents and caregivers are struggling with their own mental health and need support to keep being strong for their children. Many have children who have been unable to return to school in spite of the school being open because they cannot manage the COVID protocols required at this time. They have become the primary educators, often without outside help, and it's taken its toll. In addition, many parents have seen regression in their children's skills and behaviors due to the lack of routine and social opportunities. Parents are juggling their own jobs with the jobs of caregiving and educating their children. Not a pretty picture. In response to these needs, and with the help of Lily Penso, our Tamir founder and cousin to the Lewis family, Tamir presented a proposal to the M.B. Lewis Charitable Foundation to address this need. The proposal was aimed at providing supports to families in need. It consists of an intake system that would assess the family situation and provide professionals to support family members and children experiencing struggles due to the pandemic. The program will include providing support groups to parents that have both a learning component as well as a therapeutic component. Families have the opportunity to identify topics of interest, and Tamir provides the relevant professionals that are skilled in the particular area or discipline required. These services can include a social worker, a behaviorist, an occupational therapist, a learning specialist, Judaic studies, academic support specialists, etc. In other words, whatever is needed to be helpful to keep children moving forward and to provide education and support to the parents. None of this work would have been possible without the generous gift of the M.B. Lewis Foundation. Through this extremely generous multi-year grant from the M.B. Lewis Charitable Foundation, Tamir will be able to support these families over time. The program will change and adapt to the evolving needs of the families. As their needs change, as they grow, as they learn, the program will as well. One family shared their story, which I will in turn share with you. We have been in Ottawa for 10 years and have 3 children, including one who lives with Down syndrome. He is the oldest at 10 years. We are strong advocates for inclusion in the Ottawa Jewish community, have received some support from Tamir in the past through the Keshet for Kids program, but the past year has made huge changes for our family. All the respite for our son was cut off overnight. Our son needed to be withdrawn from school because he can't work in a virtual environment. Being home so much has affected his behavior, and he has become less independent. When school reopened, we sent him out back to school in desperation and in need of a break, understanding that he and many of the kids in his class won't and can't wear a mask, and this greatly increased our family's risk of infection. In addition, when there was a case of COVID in the class and he needs to be tested, there is biting and physical outbursts to contend with, and I started wearing long sleeves much of the time to hide my arms. There are more challenges with the therapists, many of whom are not working right now. The ones that are usually have very long wait lists, or their response times are very, very slow. When this grant is implemented, Tamir will be able to support these families, like the one we just interviewed, and give them therapists to help their son regain lost skills, support groups for siblings with special needs, and support groups, classes, and webinars for parents to get the emotional support they desperately need. Tamir is extremely grateful to be able to support our families through these challenging times. I want to once again express my personal appreciation and thanks of the Tamir community to Lily Penso for making the shidduch between Tamir and the M.B. Lewis Charitable Foundation. I want to applaud and salute Zev and Bruce Lewis for choosing Tamir. You both truly embody the expression, Kol Yisrael Aravim Ze Bazeh, that all of Israel is responsible for one another. You lead from the heart, and we are all the better for it. Now we get to hear from the Kardash Lewis family as I welcome Zev Lewis. Thank you.
Thank you, Risa, and a special Todah Rabbi to everyone associated with today's program. Adam, our Rabbi, Rav Walter, cousins Lily and Jerry Penso, Risa, and the entire Tamir staff, especially public relations specialist Francesca, who's made this all possible this morning. And more importantly, to the more than 70 participants on today's program call, our family is deeply touched by your care and concern. This morning, we've had and learned the values of family, mishpacha, and how it relates to the Kardash and Lewis Families. Allow me to briefly expand on this personal connection. First, our father, Phil, or known affectionately to his friends and relatives as Buster. You may ask, Buster? Well, Dad's family had a shoe store, Boyce and Lewis Shoes, in Southwest Washington, D.C. in the early 1900s. The family truly lived over the store. Back then, a popular shoe brand was Buster Brown, hence his nickname. Dad served in the war, became a CPA, and started his own CPA practice. The youngest of 7, when he married Mom on June 22nd, 1954 in Ottawa, she became an instant aunt to 14 nephews and nieces. Quite a new way to begin married life. My parents, our parents, led a quiet, dignified life with a focus on family, infused with Yiddishkeit, and always helping those in need. My brothers and I were instilled with a strong love of family, giving of oneself, whether it be through volunteering, advocacy work, or tzedakah. While we naturally had close contact with our Washington family, we also developed bonds to our Canadian mishpacha. Over the decades, we learned about them from our mothers and, of course, our late Aunt Lily, who lived in Washington, as every time we heard more about the Kardash family history. We always enjoyed hearing updates when Lily would go back and forth to Ottawa throughout the years, and when we had the pleasure of attending simchas. There's one in particular I want to share with you briefly. I remember with fondness in June 1973 being in Ottawa for our cousin Stephen's bar mitzvah weekend celebration. It coincided with Mom and Dad's 19th wedding anniversary. Much to our delight, our cousins who owned the Rito Bakery, really the best kosher bakery in the world as far as we're concerned, hand-delivered a decadently delicious cake for my parents' wedding anniversary celebration. My dad was always had a special fondness for Mom's family, and that Friday afternoon, he particularly appreciated cousins Izzy and his siblings who worked so hard and who were always so caring to the whole extended Kardash family. Now today, we continue our parents' commitment to family and acts of kindness by this decade-long gift to Tamir. As you've heard, Tamir was founded by our cousins Lily and Jerry Penso with the full support of the Ottawa extended family, including but not limited to cousins Rosie and her husband Chick. Today, we are the ones who say thanks to each and every one of you. We are touched by your love and thoughtfulness as demonstrated from your participation today. If I could just take a step aside from my prepared remarks, in the spirit of tzedakah, I do want to acknowledge all those individuals from different organizations that are here today who have benefited from Mom and Dad's tzedakah. And the two, and I hope I don't leave anyone out, but I recognize coming, represent Milton Gottesman Jewish Day School, the nation's capital, and Hadar. In closing, may I share this thought of deep-hearted sentiment with you. May today mark a milestone of our continued family embrace across the miles for years to come. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Zev. And on behalf of a very grateful Tamir community here in Ottawa, and as you can see, not just here in Ottawa, thank you. Thank you to you, Zev, for all your help in making this happen, to your brother Marshall, to board members Bruce, to Mark Lewis, Birch of the Charitable Foundation. all of you for honoring your parents' memory and for engaging with us in doing this important work as we respond to the pandemic. And now we open it up to our participants today. And Zev, you will be overseeing this magnificent reunion of family and friends across borders, despite the border being closed. We are still connected. It is great to see all of you, and thank you for this amazing turnout today. And we wish you the very best and also an early Shavuot Sameach.
Okay, everyone who wishes to stay on and talk to each other, particularly family and friends, you're welcome to stay. I would suggest you unmute yourselves. And I'm going to try to do this democratically and most effectively as possible. So I think the oldest representative of the Kardash family, correct me, is Lily and Jerry. And Lily and Jerry, you have to unmute yourselves. Do you want to talk a little bit?
I'm so moved with today's this morning's presentation. I'm really at a loss for words. All I can say is I'm very grateful to my wonderful family and just the community at large. We live in a wonderful community here in Ottawa, and this is just a small expression on how the community comes together in so many ways. And we wanted to add our thanks to the Lewises. And there are no further words, just a sincere thank you.
Well, thank you. And now I do, Rabbi Walter, I want to give special thanks and recognition. You're taking your time out from the shul and lots going on. And I also want to share with everybody, you did come late into our parents' lives, but you made a demonstrable difference in the quality of their life. You always brought over your young children, and my parents loved being with little kids. And they seemed to have a natural bond with my dad, and they were just so happy. And it brought a lot of love and joy and really happiness to my parents, who at that time had been homebound and couldn't get out, couldn't go to shul, really were restricted very much. But they still had the inherent spirit in their neshama, in their soul, to interact with you, appreciate that you took time to come and share words of Torah with them, as well as just be a friendly, easygoing visit. The kids always made everyone so happy. So
thank you. Thank you, Zev. It's very kind of you. It was really an honor and privilege to get to know your parents. I miss them. My kids missing stopping by, but this is just such a special way to be able to continue their legacy and their memory. And again, as I said, really each of you should continue to follow their beautiful path. And I hope one day to get to visit Ottawa and to see Tamir. And this is just a wonderful event. I thank you for including me very much.
thank you, and we'll let you understand if you need to move on to your congregants. We understand. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day, everybody.
Thank you. I'm going to turn, is Mark and Mona, would you like to talk? Mark is, let me explain family history here very quickly. My father had a sister whose name was Molly or Aunt Minnie, depending, who married Uncle Julian Birch, and they had 4 children. And Mark is one of our first cousins who married lovely Mona Kadushin Birch, and they're both there. So Mark, unmute yourself, and why don't you tell us a little bit about what you remember from the early years with your Uncle Buster?
People have spoken about the generosity in terms of philanthropy of my uncle and my aunt, Uncle Buster and Aunt Bess. But it should be also noted that they were generous in spirit and generous with their time as well. They were cheerful people to visit. And when I was not when I was completely young, because they weren't married until the 1950s, but we visited them many times, and Bess always made people feel very welcome when they came, when my family came, and Uncle Buster did as well. And we were be able to continue to visit them up until their deaths recently. I was also inspired to hear all the things that Tamir does. It seems like it has become a remarkable presence in people's life, and it's certainly a very worthy place for the spirit of my uncle and my aunt to be continued with. So, and thank you for inviting us to this program.
Thank you. I think our cousin from Detroit area, Michigan, my first cousin, Joy Beth Lewis Gardine, is on with us. Joy Beth, can you unmute yourself?
Can I mute myself while I'm not putting the camera on? Yes, I remember very fondly Uncle Buster and Aunt Beth. Uncle Buster lived with us before he met your wonderful mother. And he was a great uncle because he interacted with us quite a bit. And it was like an extra special. I'm the youngest in the family. I was 5 when they got married, and I remember going to the wedding, and I remember the wedding, and then I remember our sightseeing trips on the way home. It's when we all moved up into Northwest Washington area. We did not live that far from you all, and there would be the visits. And they were always special. I did not know my grandparents, so my aunts and uncles kind of substituted for that. And they were very special people. Devin, what you guys have done is a very special thing in your memory.
Joy, if you could speak up, it'd be helpful. Thank you, cousin.
I'm sorry. I had problems with my camera and with my thing. And I haven't had my full cup of coffee yet. Yeah, I don't know what was heard or not. Uncle Buster lived with us before he met Aunt Bess.
Next to the
And
Debbie.
it was great uncle. I went.
Can't hear.
I'm going to suggest, does my brother Bruce or Marshall wish to speak briefly?
Hi, I'm Bruce here, Zev's brother. And can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I think this has been a great program. And over the years, thanks to cousins Jerry and Lily, we did get to know more about the Tamir program, and we're glad to help them out. My parents were very charitable people, and they loved my mom's side of the family, as well as my dad's side. So it's glad that this is a way to keep in touch with the my mom's side and the Ottawa side, and great memories of visiting a mishpacha there, and delicious kosher Rito bakery bread. So I have great memories of great meals and great relatives up in Ottawa.
Thank you, Bruce. Are any of the Taylor siblings want to speak? We made reference to remembering going up for Stephen's bar mitzvah, and then I actually went to his wedding with my mother, was able to join me at that time. Is Stephen or Jeff or Mona able to speak or wish to speak?
I'll speak briefly. Hi.
Oh.
Are you able to hear us?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, speak a little louder.
Yes. Yes.
So I'm masked because it's Jeff. I'm with my dad here in his home. I've almost 95 years. So I just want to thank you guys very much. Tamir is very close to my heart as well. I know Rose was very involved at the beginning. Sorry, I get emotional. Lily would have to correct me, but I think they held some fundraising functions right here in this very home on Camborne Crescent. And so it's very, very meaningful on behalf of the Taylor family as well, that you're giving this gift to Tamir. I was very, Michael was my age. Michael, who was in Tamir, was taken care of very well by Tamir. And the Taylor family is very appreciative.
So I should tell him to take off his mask.
Well, thank you, and our best to cousin Chick, who's, I would say, the elder of all that generation of the cousins.
Yeah.
And we're just so glad you're able to take time from your busy family day to participate in this special program that means so much to all of us. I notice we have, is our cousin Stephen Lewis still on the screen?
Wow.
Cousin Steve, are you there? Well, maybe not.
Hi there.
Oh, there he is. Well, why don't you share some stories, or, you went to the wedding. I don't know if you remember the wedding, but how Uncle Buster and Aunt Bess were like
I'm gonna have to.
you.
Sure. I remember very, very well how exciting it was to go to this exotic place called Canada when I was a little kid. We all went there, drove up there. We stayed for one Shabbat in Montreal in a Hasidic community where we actually saw people standing out on their balconies in the morning wearing talesim and tefillin, just doing their morning davening. And then the whole idea of actually going to the wedding and sitting in this incredible fancy hall at a table with individual servings, not having to take out of a communal bowl or anything like that. It was just the most exciting adventure of I think all three of our childhoods, me, my sister Betsy, and my brother Michael. And I still remember the night. I must have been around 10ish or so when your mom and dad came over to our house to announce the fact that they were getting married, and they were actually getting engaged as of then. And it was just the most amazing grown-up experience to go through. And then, of course, over the years, somehow Kardash was synonymous with exotic, non-American culture, beauty. Your aunt being a painter, and just everything that was just so unworldly, that was above and beyond anything that we could do in simple hometown Washington. So all of these experiences, plus the generosity of your parents, and also I appreciate finding out about this this wonderful opportunity for tzedakah that we can all participate in, and I want to wish you, Yasher Koach and a Kol Kavod for the the gift that you made to it. And beyond that, I'm gonna stop talking, but say hi everybody, and I hope everybody survives this awful pandemic safely, and we see the light at the end of the tunnel.
Thank you, Cousin Steve. I'm going to switch actually to a member of the community here in Washington who did know our parents who visited. I think if Josh Sukoff can take the podium, and I must say, Cousin Sid, Shupsy, we will get to you right away. But if Josh Sukoff has 6 little kids at home on this Sunday morning. He is with the Milton Gosman Jewish Day School. And I think if you share the story of how my father introduced himself to you would be kind of interest.
Sure. It'd be a pleasure. You know, it actually goes right along with what Rabbi Walter talked about, which was your parents as people and your family really as people who went out and pursued tzedakah. So I was sitting in my office late one evening and I get a phone call and this gentleman says, this is Buster Lewis calling. Why haven't you asked me for money? I said, Mr. Lewis, if I knew who you were, of course I would come and ask you. I'm the director of development at the school. And so, you know, Mr. and Mrs. Lewis lived right up the street from where the school is on 16th Street in Washington, D.C. So I got some materials together and that evening went over to their home and they graciously hosted me at their dining room table, and gave me some tea and we had a great conversation and thus began a beautiful relationship over the years with both of them. And I got to meet the family and visit on, you know, several occasions and got to bring well wishes and cards and bring song from the kids at the school to Mr. and Mrs. Lewis when, you know, of course, when they weren't well. And really that what Rabbi Walter said about them pursuing generosity, really going out there and being role models for all of us in the community in terms of how to give in both spirit and in treasure, truly just beautiful. And Zev, Bruce, Marshall, you are carrying forward that legacy. You are leaders in that way. And I just want to express gratitude to you for inspiring us all to try to be that way, to try to achieve that level of tzedakah. And may you all go from strength to greater strength. And just want to also say thank you for including me today. Kol hakavod.
Thank you. I see one of our favorite cousins who relocated to Toronto with his lovely wife, cousin Kayla. Let's welcome everyone to Sydney Kardash, who we won't call him by his nickname because I know he doesn't appreciate that. But Sydney, you're on.
Thank you, Zev. I could monopolize the rest of the hour with stories about the family on Friel Street in Ottawa. We're talking one nation's capital to another in terms of memories. But to begin with, I want to wish you and your brothers, Bruce and Marshall, and of course your late parents, Yasher Koach, for establishing this foundation and donating such a wonderful gift that goes above and beyond anything I could expect from just about anybody. And I also want to again wish Lily and Jerry Penso, Yasher Koach, for their role in pioneering the establishment of Tamir in Ottawa. And I wish the new director, Atzlacha. This is a wonderful legacy to continue on to provide help for people in serious need of help. This is what Callie and I are experiencing here in Toronto with Baycrest. There's a lot of work to be done. No one should ever say that they're bored with life because there is so much need for help of any kind everywhere. But in terms of memories, all of which are very pleasant, of your late mother, Zev, I unfortunately didn't get to know your late father very well, but your mother always struck me as this growing youngster from lower town Ottawa who grew up with chickens in the backyard and a lot of other stories. She struck me as presenting herself with the ultimate in sophistication, just the way she carried herself and spoke. I thought this was someone from another world. I couldn't believe how elegant she appeared to me as a growing boy. And of course, your aunt Lily introduced me to the world of art, which I never forgot. And their parents, Uncle Littman and Auntie Kayla, I could tell you stories that'll go on forever. But again, I want to wish you and the family, Lily and Jerry for their hard work, you and your family for your very generous contribution, and continued success in all your endeavors.
Thank you. Is there anybody who would like to speak? We have the time, and it's so kind of you all to come out on a Sunday morning. Is there any of the cousins or friends? Just unmute yourself, start talking.
I'm hello. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm a board member at Tamir, and I just discovered tonight or today that I'm a distant relative of Lily, because Libby Kardish married Sam Leaf, who is my grandmother's half brother, son of Moshe Leaf, Lifshift, and Brena Steinberg. So I remember Libby Kardish at the Kardishes always giving us a kichel for the kids and so forth. Wonderful, wonderful woman. So Lily,
thank you.
We're relatives. We're relatives.
Yeah, we're mishpacha, because I actually, if is Debbie Balin in, she could explain. Debbie, do you want to talk?
I'm on the program with the Tamir. I'll call you in about 20 minutes.
Hi.
Hi, Debbie. Can you explain the family connection? Is it to the Kardash family, or?
No, well, Libby Kardish, my father's sister, Libby. So welcome to the mishpacha. So that's lovely.
You know, Debbie's family, everyone, all the family connected to the actual bakery were held very fondly by my mom and dad and my late aunts and uncles. And I particularly, on behalf of my siblings, you know, towards the end of my late aunt's life here in Washington, Aunt Lily, she went beyond what we could have imagined, and she flew down to come visit my Aunt Lily, who was not well. And my mother always had such great fondness and real true love for you, Debbie, and all your siblings and all your cousins who are extended. And I welcome to the family, Joe. We'll just call you Cousin Joe. Is that okay? That sounds good. Well, we're coming to almost towards an end here. It's almost noon. And, you know, I have nothing else more but to say thank you to the Rabbi, how much we look forward to the next 10 years participating with Tamir. And God willing, we can all get together in person and enjoy a Shechayanu, a L'chaim, as we sang songs of thanks to Hashem for good health and mishpacha. I wish each of you a wonderful good week and an early Chag Shavuot. Thank you and be well.
Zev.